I'm 72 now, and if you'd have told me at 65 that I'd be telling you this from a plastic chair with my feet in the sand on the far side of the planet, I'd have said you had me confused with somebody who had money. I did not have money. I had a diner and a house and a truck and a whole lot of stubbornness, and by the end I sold every bit of it. Every bit. That's the part folks want to argue with me about, so we'll get to it honest. My name's Ronald Adkins, though nobody in Huntington ever called me anything but Ronnie. Huntington, West Virginia, right there on the Ohio River, up in the top corner of the state where 3 states bump into each other. I ran a diner off Hal Greer Boulevard for most of my adult life. 12 stools, 4 booths, a griddle I knew better than I knew most people, eggs, home fries, brown beans, and cornbread on Fridays. Biscuits I got up at 4 in the morning to make. I fed steel workers and nurses coming off the night shift, and Marshall students who couldn't cook, and old men who just didn't want to eat alone. That was the work, feeding people who didn't want to be alone. Turned out I understood that better than I let on. Here's how it started to come apart. My wife and I split when I was 66. 41 years married, and then not. I'm not going to sit here and run her down. The good Lord knows there was fault enough to go around, and most of it wore my name. But when the lawyers were done, the savings got cut clean down the middle, and half of not much is a good deal less than not much. I came out the other side of that with the diner, the house, a truck with a rust hole you could put your fist through, and a Social Security check. And I want to be plain about that check, because it's the whole spine of this thing. About $1,800 a month. That was it. I'd been self-employed near my whole life, paid into Social Security the hard way, both halves of it, every quarter, so I had my check and I had my Medicare, same as anybody. But no pension. Cooks don't get pensions. $1,800 a month. You try being 66 in America on $1,800 a month. In Huntington in January, the gas bill alone will make you sit down. Property tax comes due, and you feel it in your chest. I'd stand in the pharmacy doing arithmetic with my thumb, this pill or that pill, not both this month. And the diner, God love it, the diner was breaking even on a good week and losing on a bad one. Fewer people sit at a counter than used to. They get their eggs from a drive-through window now and eat them in the car. So there I was, asset rich, they'd call it. I owned things. I just couldn't afford to live inside my own life. Now here's where the bell comes back in. I had a regular Merle, widower about my age, came in 3 mornings a week for 2 eggs over easy and dry wheat toast and a bottomless cup of coffee he'd nursed for 2 hours. Merle had been Navy back in the day, and he'd knocked around Southeast Asia when he was young, and he never shut up about it. One morning he's sitting on the end stool and he says to me, "Ronnie, you know what I'd do if I was you? I'd sell this grease trap and go live where it's warm and cheap. I've been to Thailand. Man can live like a king over there on what you're bleeding out here." I laughed at him. I said, "Merle, I can't even afford to live like a pauper here. What makes you think I can afford to be a king anywhere?" And he set his coffee down and he looked at me, and Merle was not a serious man. So when he got serious, it landed, and he said, "That's exactly backwards, and that's exactly why you should look into it." I didn't sleep that night. I want to tell you it was some big, beautiful moment, a light coming on. It wasn't. It was more like a splinter. Just this little thing under the skin that I kept worrying at. Warm and cheap. Warm and cheap. I was so tired of cold and broke. The next morning I did something I hadn't done in years. After the breakfast rush, when the place emptied out, I didn't flip the sign or start prepping lunch. I got a legal pad out of the drawer under the register, the kind I used for the specials board, and I sat down in the last booth with a cup of my own coffee going cold, and at the top of the page I wrote one word, Thailand. Underneath it I wrote a question. What would it actually cost? And I underlined the word actually twice, because I was 66 and I'd been lied to by enough dreams already. If this was going to be another one, I wanted to catch it early. I'm a cook. You put a plate of numbers in front of a cook, and he'll tell you if the recipe works, because a recipe that doesn't balance kills the whole plate. So that's how I went at Thailand. Not like a dream, like a recipe I didn't trust yet. That legal pad went everywhere with me for the better part of 2 years. I filled up most of it. And I'll be honest, the first winter I mostly just carried it around and didn't do much. I'd get a burst of nerve, look something up on the library computer, get scared, put it back in the drawer. 66 turned 67 turned 68 while I dithered. That's the truth of it. Nobody makes the leap the day they get the idea. You circle it like a dog trying to find where to lie down. But I did the homework, slow and stubborn. Here's what I learned, and I'm going to give it to you straight, because straight is the only thing this story is good for. The exchange rate was the first thing that made me sit up, about 33 baht to the dollar. So my $1,800 a month wasn't $1,800 over there, it was near 60,000 baht. And I started reading what things cost in baht, and the recipe started to look different than any recipe I'd run in America. I looked at a lot of towns. Everybody online screams about Chiang Mai and Bangkok, and I read about those, but something in me kept drifting south, to the coast, to a place called Krabi. Down on the Andaman side, the seaside, all those big limestone cliffs sticking up out of the water like something out of a dream you'd be embarrassed to admit you had. It wasn't the cheapest, I want to be square about that. The far north towns run cheaper, but it wasn't the priciest island either, and it was on the mainland, which mattered to me for reasons I'll explain. It looked like a place a broke old cook could afford to be warm in. That was all I was asking. To be warm and to be able to breathe. Now, the money. Everybody wants the money, so here it is. I figured careful that a genuinely comfortable life for one old man in Krabi ran about 48,000 baht a month. In dollars, call it 1,450. Rent for a decent one-bedroom, 17,000 baht, a little over $500. Food, both cooking at home and eating out, which down there you do plenty of because it's cheap and it's good, another 13,000 or so. Electric, with the air conditioning running, because you will run it, 3,000. Then your phone, your internet, getting around, a little set aside for the doctor and a cushion for whatever, 48,000 baht, all in. $1,450. I sat and looked at that number a long time because my check was $1,800, which meant for the first time since the divorce the recipe balanced. I'd have a few $100s left at the end of the month instead of a few $100 of whole. You have got to understand what that did to me, sitting in that back booth. I hadn't ended a month in the black in years. But I'm a careful man, and careful men look for the thing that's going to bite them. So I kept digging. The health part. I'm on Medicare, like every American my age. Part A, Part B, the whole business. But here's the thing, they don't put on the brochure, and the honest folks online said it plain. Medicare does not cover you in Thailand. Not one baht of it. Cross the ocean and you're on your own. That stopped me cold for a week. But then I read it through. Routine doctoring over there is cheap. A visit runs you $25, $30 out of pocket, less than my copay back home. It's the big stuff, the hospital stuff that you plan for. So the puzzle was what to do about Medicare, and I'll tell you what I decided later because I chewed on it a good while. The visa. You've got to have a reason they'll let you stay. And for a retired fella, there's a retirement visa 50 and up, which I cleared by a couple decades. For a man my age, the sensible road is what they call the in-country. Nano, you go over, and once you're there, you convert it to a one-year extension. You've got to show them the money, either 800,000 baht sitting in a Thai bank that's about $24,000, or income of 65,000 baht a month, which is close to 2,000. My check was just shy of that monthly number, so the bank deposit road was mine. And I want to be honest, that 800,000 baht has to genuinely stay put in the account. It's not a magic trick. It's real money that sits there proving you're not going to be a burden. Then there's the 90-day report, where you tell them every 3 months you're still living where you said. The annual renewal, about 1,900 baht, a form for your address they call a TM30. Little rules. Bureaucrat rules. I'll get to how those actually feel later, because reading them and living them are two different animals. So the recipe balanced. But a recipe on paper and a plate on the counter aren't the same thing, and I knew it. I wasn't going to sell my whole life on the strength of a legal pad. I'm not that kind of fool. I'm a different kind. So at 69, 3 years ago now, I did the one thing I'll tell anybody who asks to do. Before you burn anything, go look. I bought a round-trip ticket. 2 weeks. I told my son Danny, he's up in Columbus, does something with insurance I've never fully understood. I told Danny I was going to Thailand to look, and there was a long quiet on the phone, and then he said, "Dad, is this about Mom?" And I said, "No, son, this is about the gas bill," which was true, and also wasn't the whole truth, but it was enough of it to fly on. The heat hit me before anything else. You step off that plane and the air comes at you like the door of my own oven, swinging open, wet, heavy, smelling of jet fuel, and underneath it something green and sweet I didn't have a name for yet. I stood on the tarmac at that little crabby airport, 70 years old, give or take, sweating through a shirt I'd ironed in West Virginia the day before, and I thought, Ronnie, what in the world have you done? I'll tell you the truth about those first 2 weeks. They near about sent me home. Not because it was bad, because it was so much. Everything at once. I'd lived my whole life inside 20 square miles of the Ohio Valley. I knew every pothole. And now here I was where I couldn't read a single sign, couldn't order a plate of food without pointing like a child, couldn't tell you which way was north. The first night in my little rented room in Ao Nang, I sat on the end of the bed and listened to the geckos chirping in the walls, big loud things, not like our little lizards back home, and I thought, this was a young man's idea, and I am not a young man. But morning comes. Morning always comes, and I'm a morning person by trade. 40-some years of getting up at 4'll do that to you. So I got up and I walked. Ao Nang, in the early morning, before the heat gets mean, before the tour boats fire up, that's when it got me. The long-tail boats lined up on the beach, these long wooden things with ribbons tied to the bow and a truck engine bolted to the back, bobbing in water so clear you could count the stones under it. Those limestone cliffs going straight up out of the sea, black and green, with the mist still hanging on them, and quiet. Just the water and the boatmen murmuring to each other, and somewhere a rooster that hadn't got the memo about being in paradise. I found a food cart. Of course I found a food cart. A cook finds the food. Woman had a little cart with a griddle on it, making these thin, crispy pancake things, roti, folding them over with egg and banana, and a rain of sweet condensed milk. I pointed. She grinned at me, a big gold-toothed grin, said something I didn't catch, and made me one. Cost me 20 baht, 60 cents. I stood there on the side of the road eating the best thing I'd put in my mouth in a year, 60 cents, watching the cliffs, and something in my chest that had been clenched up tight since the divorce just loosened. A notch. Just a notch. I'm not going to oversell it, but a notch. I did my homework those 2 weeks, careful, the way I'd promised myself. I didn't just gawk. I went and looked at apartments, real ones, with a fella from a rental office. Not the fancy tourist places on the beachfront, but the ones where people actually live, back off the water a little. I found decent one-bedrooms right in the range I'd figured, 18,000 baht. I walked into a bank and asked, in my terrible pointing way, about accounts. I took a song-thu that's a pickup truck with 2 benches in the bed and a roof over it. You flag it down and pile in with whoever's already there into Krabi Town, the real town, away from the tourists, where the night market smelled of grilling fish and chilies so fierce they made my eyes water, and I watched families eating supper on plastic stools and thought, people just live here. It's not a postcard. It's a place where the water bill comes due same as anywhere. I ate the food and I made myself learn it, because food's how I think. Down in the South, the cooking's different from what you picture hotter. For one thing, they don't play around with the chilies, and there's a Muslim streak through the whole region you don't get up north. Mosques next to the Buddhist temples, halal shops, a yellow curry that near took the top of my head off and that I went back for 3 days running. Gang, they call the curries. Somtam, the green papaya salad that's basically an assault, and the seafood fish that was in the sea that morning, grilled over coals with lemongrass shoved in the belly, for less than I'd pay for a bad hamburger at home. I also got my first honest look at the hard parts, and I made myself write them down, because a scouting trip where you only see the good is a lie you tell yourself. The heat did not let up, not once, not at night. I got the runs for 2 days from something, probably the very yellow curry I loved, and there was a stretch, day 9 or so, sitting alone at a plastic table watching couples and families and feeling every one of my 70 years and every mile between me and anybody who knew my name, where the loneliness came down on me like a wet blanket, and I thought, you could do all this and still just be a sad old man, only now a sad old man in the heat with nobody who speaks your language. I flew home not knowing. That's the honest truth. I flew home with a legal pad full of real numbers that worked, a belly that had been happy for 2 weeks, and a heart that had not decided one single thing. Here's the part folks want to fight me on, so let me just lay it on the counter and we can look at it together. I came home, and over that next winter, I sold everything. The diner, the house, the truck with the rust hole, the Davenport, the good chair, the bed I'd slept in for 30 years, the pots, all of it. And I know, because I read the same honest advice you can read, that the smart play, the careful play, is to keep a bridge. Rent your house out, don't sell it. Go over and try it a year before you cut the cord. Keep something back home to crawl to if the whole thing goes sideways. That's the wise counsel, and it's good counsel, and I want to be real clear that I did not take it. Why not? A couple reasons, and one of them's better than the other. The good reason, the house and the diner were the only real money I had, and the money was the whole point. Sitting in Huntington, my life was locked up inside a building nobody wanted to buy eggs in anymore, and a house I couldn't afford to heat. Selling it was the only way to turn asset-rich, cash-poor into a life I could actually live. All told, when the dust settled, I walked away with a little north of $220,000. First real cushion I'd had in my grown life. That money wasn't for spending. That money was my safety net, and I'll tell you exactly what I did with it. The other reason, the one that's not as smart, I think I wanted to burn the boat. I was 69, divorced, tired down to the bone of a place that had gotten expensive and cold and quiet on me. And some stubborn part of me thought, if I leave myself a way to come crawling back, I'll come crawling back the first hard week. So I didn't leave myself one. And I'd be lying if I told you that was pure courage. Some of it was courage. Some of it was a man too proud to give himself an exit. The day I unscrewed that brass bell off the diner door after the new owners had signed, when I was clearing out my personal things, that's the day it got real. I stood on a step stool with a screwdriver and I took it down, and the door didn't jingle when the new fellow walked in behind me, and he didn't even notice. Why would he? I put that bell in my shirt pocket. It's the one thing from that whole life I carried across the ocean. It's sitting on my windowsill right now. Danny thought I'd lost my mind. My son. He drove down from Columbus and sat at my kitchen table, in the house I'd already sold, and he said, Dad, this is running away. Mom left and now you're going to run to the other side of the earth. And that hurt because there was a splinter of truth in it. But I told him the honest thing. I said, Danny, staying here isn't brave. Staying here is just slow. I did the numbers. I can't win here. I might be able to win there. And I'm 69 years old. How many more times am I going to get to try something? He didn't like it, but he stopped fighting it. Now here's the careful part, because I don't want you thinking I just threw the money in a bag and jumped. I went back over, in country, and I did it by the book. I opened a Thai bank account and I moved 800,000 baht into it, that $24,000, and I let it sit the way they require, because that's the money that gets you the retirement visa the sensible way. I converted to the non-O and then the 1-year extension, and yes, I sat in the immigration office 3 separate mornings with a folder of papers, sweating, waiting on a number to be called, and I'll tell you about that circus later. I rented, I did not buy. A foreigner can't own the land under his feet over there anyhow, and I wasn't about to sink my cushion into a condo when a good apartment was 17,000 baht a month. Rent, don't buy. That much wisdom I did take, and Medicare. Here's what I decided, and I think about it as the one thread I refused to cut. I kept paying my Part B. It's $202.90 a month, and it does me not one bit of good in Thailand. I said that already. Medicare won't cross the water. So why keep bleeding $200 a month for coverage I can't use where I live? Because I sold my house. Because I've got no bridge home. And keeping Part B means if something truly catastrophic ever happens, the kind of thing that eats a cushion whole, I can get on a plane, land in the States, and be covered the day I touch down without a penalty for having dropped it. It's my one door back. A man who burns every boat but keeps one life raft that's about the size of me. The rest of the health picture I'll get to, because at 72 it's not simple and I won't pretend it is. I landed in Krabi for good with 2 suitcases, a brass bell, a bank account full of proof I could stay, and no house on earth to go back to. $1,450 a month of life ahead of me and $1,800 a month coming in, and I was terrified. Let anybody who tells you they weren't terrified sell you something. I was scared to death. I just decided to be scared over there where it was warm. The first 3 months I lived in Krabi were some of the loneliest of my whole life, and I've had some lonely ones, so that's saying it. Here's what the videos don't show you. The scouting trip is a vacation. Living somewhere is not a vacation. Once the newness wore off, and it wears off faster than you'd think, I was just an old man alone in an apartment where the ceiling fan ticked and the gecko chirped, and I didn't have one single person I could call to. Say, you want to get coffee. Back home, broke as I was, I had 31 years of people. The mailman knew my name. Now I had a nice, clean, quiet apartment and a whole ocean of strangers. And the language. Lord, the language. I'd told myself I'd learn it. The way you tell yourself you'll lose the weight. Thai is a tonal language. Same little word said 5 different ways means 5 different things, and get the tone wrong and you've either said rice or tiger or something that makes a teenager giggle at you. Down south, they've got their own accent on top of it. I learned my hellos Sawasdi crap and my thank yous Cap Coon crap, and I could count and point and smile, and that gets you further than you'd think. People are kind about it. But it is a wall. There were whole days I didn't have a real conversation with another human being, just gestures and grins and same and pointing at menus. That wears on a man. That wears deep. Then the rains came, May, and the monsoon rolled in off the Andaman, and it didn't sprinkle. It came down in gray sheets for hours, days. The sea gone, the color of dishwater, and the tourists vanished, and the whole town seemed to pull inside itself. I sat by my window watching it come down, and I had my one bad night. The real one. I'm not too proud to tell you. I got out my phone and I looked up the number of the fellow who'd bought my house. I'd kept it. God knows why, and I sat there with my thumb over it thinking, Maybe he hasn't done much to it. Maybe I could ask about buying it back. Maybe I made the worst mistake an old fool ever made. No bridge. I'd burned it. And on that gray night with the rain coming down, burning it felt less like courage and a lot more like stupidity. I didn't make the call. You want to know what stopped me? I did the numbers again. Sat right there and did 'em. The cook doing his recipe one more time. Even to buy back a house I couldn't afford to heat, in a town I couldn't win in. On $1,800 a month, the recipe didn't balance. It never had. Coming back wouldn't fix the thing that sent me away. All coming back would buy me was familiar misery instead of strange misery, and at least the strange kind was warm, so I put the phone down. But I want you to know it was close. Anybody who moves across the world and tells you they never once reached for the door home is lying to you, and I don't lie about the hard parts. The hard parts are the only reason to trust the good ones. The bureaucracy didn't help my mood any. That first 90-day report, where you go and tell immigration you still live, where you said I got the timing wrong, showed up late, got a fine and a look. I nearly forgot a re-entry permit before a trip up to Phuket, which if you leave the country without it just cancels your whole visa, and a kind Australian fella at the coffee shop caught me in time. Mate, you got your re-entry permit? Or I'd have thrown away that 800,000 baht of sitting still for nothing. Little rules. They don't break you, but they grind you, especially when you're already low. But here's where it turned, and it turned the way everything in my life has ever turned, through a griddle. There was a food stall 2 streets back from my place, run by a woman everybody called Pai Da. Pai is a respect thing, like calling somebody older sister. She made noodles and grilled pork skewers, mu ping, over coals right out front, and I'd been eating there most every evening because it was cheap and close and I didn't have to talk. She'd figured out my order without me having to say it, which if you've ever cooked for people, you know that's a kind of love, remembering the order. One evening her griddle's acting up. The gas won't catch right, and she's fussing with it, and I couldn't help myself. 40 years behind a griddle. I came around the side and I motioned, "May I?" And I got down and I fixed the regulator. It was just gunked up. I'd fixed 100 like it, and I got her flame back blue and even. She looked at that flame, and she looked at me, and she said the first thing anybody in Krabi had said to me that I understood all the way down. She put her hands together, the Y, and she said, Kop kun, thank you, thank you. And then she pointed at me and pointed at the griddle and grinned this huge grin and made the motion of eating, like, you know this. And I grinned back like a fool, because somebody had finally seen the one thing I actually was. After the night of the griddle, Pai Day started letting me help. It started small. I'd come by early, before her evening rush, and I'd show her how I did home fries, and she'd show me how she pounded her curry paste, real pounding, in a stone mortar the size of a bucket, chilies and garlic and shrimp paste and lemongrass until your eyes ran and your arm ached. We couldn't hardly talk. We didn't need to. A kitchen's a kitchen in any language. You point, you taste, you nod, you laugh when somebody puts in too much fish sauce. Her English got a little better and my Thai got a little less terrible, and we met in the middle, in the food, where I'd always done my best talking anyhow. Her family took me in slow. That's the Thai way, and I want to be honest about it, because people romanticize it. They don't just fling their arms around the strange old Farang. Farang is what they call us Westerners, and it's not an insult, it's just what you are. It took months, but regularity is its own kind of language over there. You show up, you're kind, you don't make a fuss, you don't get loud, you don't lose your temper in public. They've got a word, Jai Yin, cool heart, and they set a lot of store by it. You keep a cool heart and you keep showing up, and one day you look around and you're not a customer anymore. Pai Dad's grandson started calling me Lung Ron. Lung means uncle, Uncle Ron. I about cried in my noodles the first time, which for the record is a thing I've now done more than once. Rock Bottom and Cloud 9 both taste like noodles over there. Danny came to visit at the end of my first year. My son. He flew all the way over, still half convinced he was coming to rescue his father from a mistake. I met him at that same little airport where I'd once stood sweating and terrified, and I watched him come through the heat with the same look on his face I must have had. I took him around for a week. I took him to Pai Da's, and she fed him till he couldn't move and refused his money. I took him up the Tiger Cave Temple, Wat Tham Suea, where you climb over 1,000 steps straight up the mountain in the wet heat, 1,200 and some, we counted. We had to stop about 9 times, and I'm the one in my 70s, and at the top there's the whole coast laid out under you, the cliffs and the sea and the green going on forever. Danny stood up there breathing hard, red as a beet, and he looked out at it a long time, and he said, "Okay, Dad, just that, okay." That was the whole apology and the whole blessing, and I took it. Now let me talk about the health part square, because at 72 that's the question under all the other questions, and I won't pretend it away. Routine care over there is a gift. I found a good hospital in Krabi Town, private, clean doctor who spoke fine English, and a visit runs me about 1,000 baht, $30, out of pocket, no insurance, and I'm in and out in an hour. My blood pressure pills cost a fraction of what they did at that pharmacy in Huntington where I used to do my thumb arithmetic. For the everyday, it's better and cheaper than anything I had at home, full stop. It's the big stuff that you plan for. And I'll tell you my plan honest because it's not perfect. I looked into private Thai insurance, the real kind that covers a big hospital bill. At my age, 72, with blood pressure and a couple of old man conditions already on the books, it ran north of 100,000 baht a year and climbing every year, and they wanted to exclude half of what might actually go wrong with me. So I made a choice, and it's a gambler's choice, and I know it. I self-insure the middle from my cushion. That $220,000 is sitting there for exactly this, and for the truly catastrophic, the door home is Medicare. That's why I keep paying that $202.90 a month for Part B I can't use here. Something enormous happens. I get on a plane if I'm able, and I'm covered in the States. Is it a perfect plan? No. A younger man, or a richer one, would carry the Thai policy too. But it's an honest plan, and I made it with my eyes open, and that's more than I could say for most of the plans of my life. For the middle-sized scares, the real hospitals are a couple hours off. Phuket's got a big international one. Bangkok's got the best of them. Krabi's a little remote that way, and I traded some of that top-shelf access for the cliffs and the quiet and the price. That was a real trade. I made it on purpose. That's what a careful landing is, not pretending there's no cost, but knowing what you're paying and deciding it's worth it. And most days, it surely is. Most days I make merit at the little Wat down the road in the mornings, put a bit of food in the monks' bowls as they come by barefoot at dawn, which for a man who never was much for church has become the quietest good part of my day. It's been 3 years now. I'm 72. Let me tell you what a Tuesday looks like, because the whole point of a life isn't the big days, it's the Tuesdays. I'm up before the heat. Same as always, a cook never loses that. I walk down to the beach while it's still soft and gray, and I watch the long-tail boats get loaded and the cliffs come out of the mist. I get my roti from the same cart, the same gold-toothed woman, and now she doesn't grin at a stranger, she grins at Lung Ron and hands it over before I ask. Some mornings I put a little rice in a monk's bowl. Middle of the day when it's too hot to be a hero, I'm inside with the fan going, reading, napping like an old cat. Evenings I'm at Pai Da's, helping with the rush now, actual helping, flipping her pork skewers and arguing with her grandson about the football soccer. They mean, but I've come around to calling it football. On Sundays there's a fellow named Jeff from Manchester and that Australian who saved my visa and a couple others, and we drink a Chang beer or 3 and lie about our younger days. And the money, since I promised you I'd never dodge the money. It works. It just works. That $1,800 a month, The exact same check that had me doing pill arithmetic in a Huntington pharmacy. Buys me a warm, clean, comfortable life with the C in it, and leaves me a little something over besides $150 to the good most months once I've sent my Medicare payment back to the States. Same check, same man. The only thing that changed was where I stood to spend it. That's the whole secret, and it's not really a secret, it's just geography and a hard decision. Now I'm going to be as honest at the end as I was at the start, because you've come this far with me, and you deserve it. It is not paradise. I miss things. I miss my son with a physical ache some days, and the grandkids I don't have yet, and now maybe won't be down the road for when they come. I miss American autumn, the one thing that place did right, the hills going red and gold along the river. I'm still a Farang, and I always will be. There's a glass wall you can put your hand flat against but never quite walk through, no matter how many pork skewers you flip. And there's a low hum under all of it. Some nights that I sold every last thing, and I've got no house, no boat, nothing on that whole continent to catch me but a Medicare card and a plane ticket. On the good days, that feels like freedom. On the 3 in the morning days, it feels like walking a wire. I won't tell you it doesn't. I'd be no use to you if I lied about that one. But here's the thing I know now that I didn't know. Standing on that tarmac, sweating through my iron shirt, the wire held. 3 years, and it held. And I got something I'd flat given up on. I got to be somebody again. Uncle Ron with the good hands. The old cook who fixed the flame. A man people are glad to see walk in, even without a bell over the door to announce him. I took that bell down off my old diner and I carried it around the world, and it sits on my windowsill catching the light off the Andaman Sea, and it doesn't ring anymore, and I don't need it to. I know who's coming through the door now. It's me, coming into the rest of my own life, warm for once, and a few dollars ahead, and not alone. If I could say one thing to the fella I was in that back booth with a cold cup of coffee and a legal pad, 66, scared, broke in the cold, I'd tell him the recipe balances. Go slow. Go look first. Keep more of a bridge than I kept. You don't have to be as stubborn as me. But the recipe balances. Go. Before I let you go, let me tell you one honest thing, and then I'll leave you be. If any of this got in under your skin, if you've got that same splinter I had, that warm and cheap splinter, wondering if the numbers could ever work for somebody like you, there's a free tool down in the description that's worth a look. The Honest Thailand Retirement Starter Kit, they call it. I didn't make it, and I'm not selling you a thing, I promise you that. It's just a plain self-check that'll tell you straight whether this is even a fool idea for your situation. It's as ready to talk you out of it as into it, and a worksheet where you run your own real numbers, city by city, the way I ran mine on that legal pad. Cost you nothing. And if it tells you to stay right where you are, well, that's an honest answer too, and worth knowing. That's all I've got for you. Take care of yourself, and eat something good tonight.